Okay, so I've had someone ask me about the recent move in the Swiss franc, and did the relative volume possibly show any kind of signals to anticipate that big move. Obviously the big move was a news-based event, something about the Euro banks weren't wanting to hold their Euro, I'm sorry, the Swiss banks weren't wanting to hold their Euro position anymore, and they wanted to get out of it or whatever, and then that kind of, the news of that kind of caused the big explosion in the Swiss franc, and the Swiss franc just went, you know, skyrocketing up, and then the Euro was coming down as the Swiss franc was going up, obviously. So, okay, actually, then the next part of the question was, does this work? Does this indicator work in the spot Forex market? He goes on to say, I know there is technically no volume in the Forex markets, but some other vendors have volume indicators, and they figured out a way to get the volume data in the spot Forex. There's really no secret way to get volume data. I mean, it's pretty standard. IB, Interactive Brokers, I think does provide some kind of volume for Forex, some kind of approximation, or, you know, a hint to, or at least the volume that they're experiencing being traded. But nonetheless, any data feed, most data feeds will give you the proxy, which would just be the total number of transactions, or the ticks. So you can use ticks as a proxy for volume in the spot Forex. And obviously Kinetic will do that. Kinetic will give you total transactions, which is what I have. I'm sure a number of other data feeds do. So don't be, you know, fooled if some vendor says they have secret access to the spot Forex volume, because it's, you know, it's maybe just a gimmick if they're saying something like that. But anyhow, this is the 6S, which is the futures contract, and this is a 54-minute chart. So I would just show you this, because this would be what I would use to set up the signal, and this is the kind of typical perfect higher low that I look for. So I look for major turns. If I'm looking to trade a bottom, the only possible way I would trade a bottom is if momentum is waning, we're down at the bottom of the channel, we've either had a throw under of a channel, or we've had a strong low and then a good push out of that low, and we're making the first higher low, and I'll try to trade that first higher low, which would be this. This would be a typical kind of first higher low, and you see we've pulled back into the sweet spot between the 61.8 and the 78.16. I'm sorry, the 78.6. So that's just a typical kind of a retracement after the initial push up. And where at did it pull back to where did it pull back? Right here, this previous low, which we've marked with a really high relative volume, 500%, gives us the two diamonds, the top and the bottom. It throws that red line off as support. We hit support here, we bounce off. We hit it here, we bounce off. We go through it, down to the bottom of the channel, and then up to the top of the channel. And now we've come back down. Look at how much momentum has waned, is waning there, as opposed to, say, this move down, or this move down, or even this move down. Now we've just kind of gone sideways to down. It's very telling right there. Alright, and then I would take and look at the 5-minute and see what's going on in here. It's a clear signal there, but then, boom, it just goes. Now, that kind of a move has nothing to do with this setup, but I was asked, you know, is there some kind of a look, you know, previous to the move? And yes, there is, actually. So somebody was building a long position in here. So that's the 54-minute chart. This is the hourly, you know, 6 minutes larger, but you can see the same pattern on the hourly. And then we'll look at the USD CHF in a moment, the actual spot Forex. This is the 240-minute chart, and just to kind of blow that up a little bit, let's see. Here I've connected from the low to the low here, and then up to the high back here at kind of the maximum excursion, the distance between the channel, between the high and the low. We've had a little bit of a throw under here, down into this low, not very high volume at all though, and then it kind of drifts up to a churn bar, high relative density bar, showing that it's, you know, much higher relative volume per range, showing that resistance is being met right there. Supply is coming into the market at that point, and then it drifts down and it breaks this low. So it's testing this low, just barely breaking lower, right? And then we get the little weak churn bar showing that demand is coming into the market. And then we get a churn bar showing that supplies come back in, and then we get this kind of a climax to break this low, put in that low, and then we get a climax down, a climax right back up, and then the sideways before it pops. So then, you know, one more bar and it goes boom right there. Okay, so now let's look at that daily chart before I switch to the spot Forex. So this is the daily chart, and you can see perfectly on the daily, an even larger channel, you're right at the bottom of that channel. So you're at the bottom of every channel on every time frame into this low right here. I mean, that's pretty obvious. And then you have bullish divergence on the daily chart. So you get that low here on an increase in volume. So it's the first bar on which the market is pulling up and people are buying off of the low, and it's about twice the amount of volume as the previous day. Okay, then it drifts sideways to back down. We come back down on lower volume than we did on the way up, and we're met with support coming into the market there. We have high relative volume per range. It's kind of a weak churn bar, that's why it's orange. And then it puts in the low and then turns up from there. So pretty good look to a little bit of a, you don't have very high volume there like you would like to see, like you would see on other contracts, like equities or stocks or the index futures, things like that, or crude oil. But it is a kind of a decent low right at the bottom of a channel. Now, if I show the EUR CHF, and we get the kind of reverse look to this, so this is up at the high. Then you can see we have a channel, uptrend channel as well, and we kind of went through it here, but then we came right to the top of the channel here, and then we get this bearish divergence, just barely, in the momentum, just showing us that here market's going up pretty strong, and then for the last few bars it's not going up nearly as strong, you see. So it's just kind of pulled back and then drifted back up to the top. Put in that high on the highest relative volume that we've had for the past, say, 12 bars, a weak climax bar. That's why it's blue. Weak climax into the high, and then the next bar is just enormous bar straight down. So that's the daily. Now looking at the hourly on this market here, you can see we're right to the top of the channel right there. So we would connect from low to low back to this swing high, which is a climax bar itself, and then we get right up to the top of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right to the top, right to that high. And we get a climax up, and then a climax right back down, and then we get the pullback, as you can see right there. So that's pulled back 78.6 to this previous high as well. So we get that perfect kind of a look, pretty easy. I mean, we've got the first big move back down, so it's been coming up, 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 climax up, climax up, climax up, climax up. First big climax down, very high relative volume, and then we get the lazy kind of a sideways pullback. That's the first lower high, and then the next bar is straight down. Obviously, the size of the bar has nothing to do with the setup, but I was just asked if there were if there might have been a setup there, and there was. So just kind of happened that way, but somebody's building a big short in here. Okay, and then looking one channel further out, so this is a 4-hour chart, 240, one channel further, low to low, and then back to this high, gives us this high perfectly. So we're right at the top of the channel, and yeah, we get the climax bar to the high, and then the first bar down is a climax, or a breakout, what you would call a breakout, and then it just drifts back. And then here on this bar, this 4-hour bar, look at that. Very high relative volume per range, very high relative density. Let's look at that. So that's showing that it's kind of put in a bit of a shelf right there. Just a very narrow range, but still high volume. So just kind of indecision, wasn't really moving that much. And then it drifts higher into two decreasing relative density bars, with that last one being higher relative volume than the previous 4 bars, or 3 bars. And then it rolls, so pretty interesting. The whole time, obviously, momentum is waning as we've been going up steep, less steep, even less steep. And that's the kind of look. You got 1, 2, 3, decreasing momentum on every wave back up, and then the last wave up is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with weak momentum into a climax. See those 2 triangles marking that high? So pretty obvious high there. Okay, so that's it. I think that's kind of shows you how this works on Forex as well. This is a weekly chart. So pretty good little overview of what this does on Forex. And yeah, it does work on spot Forex.